video is to allow you to correct the homework from section 7.1.2. Problems are 719 through 723. So for the first one, Beth and Amy are racing to see who can ride a tricycle the fastest. They want you to graph the data about Beth's travel that's recorded in this table. So your first row is time in seconds, so that's going to be your horizontal axis label. Your second is distance in feet, so that's going to be your vertical label. Okay. And then what you're going to need to do is put a title on this. They should have done that. Sometimes CPM gets a little lazy about their titling, but maybe best travel or something like that. They went with a scale of 0 to 20 and went by fives here. And for distance, they went, looks like 0 to 45 going by fives. And then they graphed these points. So 5, 11 was over 5 up to approximately 11. Put a point there. 10, 22. So again, over 10, approximately 22. Put a point there, and so on. So they graphed these 4 points, and then they connected the dots to create that line, which represents her rate of travel. Then they want to know, what is her rate of travel? So one way to find her rate of travel will be to figure out her unit rate. In other words, how far did she go in 1 second? So if you take 11 and divide by 5, or 22 divided by 10, or any of these values, since it's a constant rate, you're going to get 2 and 2/10, so that's a decimal between there, feet per second. And then if Amy travels at a rate of 75 feet for 30 seconds, would the line representing her distance and time be steeper or less steep than the graph of Beth's? And you have to explain. Well, if you take 75 feet and divide by 30 seconds, you will get how fast she's going, which is 2 and 5/10 feet per second. So again, feet divided by seconds gives you feet per second. Since this rate is higher or faster than this rate, the line would be more steep, meaning it would be more in this range. For the next one, 720, they tell you the area of the rectangle is 8 1/4 square inches. You have to find the perimeter. So the rectangle also shows you that it has a length of 4.5. So basically we're trying to figure out what would the width be if, when you multiply it by 4.5, you get an area of 8 1/4. So we know that you take length times width to give you area. So if you give an area, you can divide by length to get width. So 8 1/4 divided by 4 1/2. And it will give you 1 5/6. Now, in terms of how you're going to show the work for that, which it specifically says you need to do, you would take your 8 1/4 divided by 4 1/2. First, change those to improper fractions. So again, we should have that down, which is denominator times whole number plus numerator over original denominator. So 4 times 8 is 32, plus 1 is 33. So 33 fourths. That's a bad looking 3, sorry. Divided by, same thing here, denominator times whole number plus numerator over denominator. So 9 halves. And then remember, when you divide fractions, which is what you have now set up, you're going to do your keep, change, flip. So keep the 33 over 4. Change your division sign to a multiplication. Change or flip the second fraction to make it 2/9. Then you can simplify. The 2 in the numerator can divide by 2, and the 4 in the denominator can divide by 2. You could also simplify because the 3, well, I should say 9 and 33 will both divide by 3. So 9 divided by 3 gives you 3, and 33 divided by 3 gives you 11. So at that point, when you multiply across, you get 11/6. 11 times 1 is 11, 2 times 3 is 6, and 11/6 is the same as 1 5/6. So that's the kind of work we should see. Then I should also see the work for the perimeter, that you took 4 1/2 plus 1 5/6 plus 4 1/2 plus 1 and 5/6. In other words, that you added the length plus width plus length plus width to get the perimeter. And again, show the work, show the common denominator, and the simplified answer should be 2 2/3. For 721, they want you to complete the portions web representations. Make sure again that you show your work. So for 3/5, we're going to want to change it to the other formats, which would be the decimal, percent, words, and so on. So percent would be 60%. Now, how are you going to show that work? Well, you can show that if you multiply top and bottom by 20, you would get 60 over 100, which is 60%. Or you could show that if you took 3 divided by 5, you get the decimal of 6/10, which when you move the decimal point 2 places to the right, gives you 60%. And then, of course, in words, you could go with the 3/5, which was the original fraction, or I would also take it if you had said 6/10, which is the decimal. This time they're giving you the decimal, and you have to convert to fraction, simplest form, percent, and words. So your fraction for 7/10 is just 7/10. That can't be simplified. Your percent is 70%. Move the decimal 2 places to the right, add a percent sign. And your words would be 7/10. For 16%, you are going to have 16 over 100, but then you should show that you would simplify that, divide by 4 top and bottom, and you get 4 25ths. And then the decimal, of course, for 16% is 1600ths, moving the decimal 2 places to the left and dropping the percent sign. And of course, the words would be 1600ths, or you could have gone with 4 25ths. You can always use the fraction or the decimal to state the words. Here for 2 and 4500ths, that's 245%, moving the decimal 2 places to the right, adding a percent sign. That's 2 and 9/20ths as a mixed number, because it'd be 2 and 4500ths. 45 and 100 are both divided by 5. That's how you're getting your 9/20ths. You could also have gone with, what would it be, 49/20ths for an improper fraction. And then for words, 2 and 4500ths, or 2 and 9/20ths. Here, make sure you're showing your steps. So again, they say simplify, which means find the answer. They do not state use order of operations, but you must use order of operations. So it will not always be stated, but you do need to use it to get the correct answer. So I should see that you first did parentheses, and then you did your multiplication, and then you did your addition subtraction. So I should see the steps. So I will give you an example on this first one. I should see that you took 4 times 4. I'm going to try to go with a bigger size print here for you. But I should see that you took 4 times 4, and then plus 4 times 3, because we're doing the parentheses first, plus 7. Then 4 times 4, of course, is 16. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 7. I apologize for that noise. Then 28 plus 7, which then finally gives you your final answer of 35. So again, if you just have an answer of 35, you are not going to get credit for that. You need to make sure that you're showing those steps. Now you'll notice that I switched from the raised dot to parentheses for multiplication. It doesn't matter. I was just trying to make sure I could do it on my keyboard as easily as possible. Same thing here. Make sure you're showing your steps. So show the parentheses, then multiplication and division is left to right. So your next step would be your 9 divided by 9, and then your 4 times 1, and then your last step would be your addition subtraction. But again, show all those works or all those steps. If you don't show the work, you won't get credit. So the final answer is 3. Same thing for the third one. Show your steps, use order of operations. Answer is 2. Again, show your steps. Remember, if you have, like in this case, subtraction and multiplication within parentheses, then you're going to follow that order of operations within the parentheses as well. So you'll do your 2 times 6, which is 12, then take your 15 minus that, then multiply by 3, and lastly subtract 5. So again, show your work. Here, you can do some simplifying before you multiply, but somehow you have to show how you did the products. Now remember, even though it says calculate, that does not mean you can use a calculator. You still have to show your work. Calculate's just another way of saying simplify or find the answer. So in this one, I would probably simplify my 2 and 14 first, and then I would have 11 over 35, which cannot be simplified any further. Here, I would probably change my 12% to a decimal, 0.12, 12 hundredths times for of 32 and 8 tenths. Again, make sure that you show that you multiplied your decimal times your decimal and show the work in steps for that. Final answer would need 3 decimal places because you'll have 2 from the decimal here, 1 from here. So 3 and 936 thousandths. Here again, I should see the work. I should see that you multiplied. And you'll also need 3 decimal places again in your answer. You get 548 thousandths. And here you should show that you changed the 2 and 2/3 to an improper fraction first. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So we get 8/3 times 3/11ths. And then simplify your 3's would probably be the best way to approach it. And then multiply across. So I know I keep stressing this, but make sure you're showing the work because you're not going to get credit for answers if you're not.